So this will be my attempt to gauge a reading of the early reactions from YouTubers, professional critics, fans, and others. I will forewarn, I may come off a little too negative. To counterbalance, I would urge people to go to Rotten Tomatoes. There are some very positive reviews from fans who have seen it, but I can't lie. And again, I could be wrong in my interpretation. I'm reading the vast majority of reactions are fairly negative. There are a few positive reviews, but even they are sort of lukewarm. Some people have said it's good, but most have said it's either fairly bad, or it's passable, or it's downright disrespectful and just really stupid and terrible. That said, it's not the worst film. It's not maybe even the worst Halloween film. But one review said this will easily be one of the worst films of this year. Take that for what it is. Let's begin with the positives. The positives are the music is pretty good, cinematography is solid. It does appear that there will be some twists that are interesting, but they don't quite develop those ideas. The beginning is very strong, so people have said the first 20 to 30 minutes were very engaging, very interesting. The final scenes are also very epic, so the final fight is well done, and people were satisfied that the ending is conclusive. There is an ending, the trilogy does end. From there, the negatives are pretty overwhelming, and there are a lot of them. There is not a lot of Michael, so I want to apologize because I guess I struck midway in my prediction videos that there would be more Michael than we thought. No, there apparently is very, very little Michael. Michael appears apparently once in the first 40 to 45 minutes, and again, some people may be exaggerating. There are, quote, kills or action scenes that happen, but essentially after we see Michael, nothing really happens for about an hour. It only really picks up towards the end. In terms of Michael himself, we only get really 30 minutes of Michael and Laurie. That's about it. In between, there is a lot going on, a lot of subplots, but they don't make sense. They don't really seem to go anywhere. And scenes just zip by really quickly. But they do tell you explicitly what is happening in scenes. And I guess the idea is the presence of Michael Myers in the town of Haddonfield and how that plays out. They don't explicitly say it's Corey, but apparently we do follow one character a lot. And I mean a lot. So he is a lot in this film. But whoever this person is, they do dominate most of the film. And that is basically what the film is centered on. There's also a big romance plot with, I assume, Allison and Corey. Puzzlingly, there is not a lot of Allison. I don't know how you can do that, but they did it. There is not a lot of Laurie, not a lot of Allison, and not a lot of Michael. And what is put in its place is just a lot of melodrama, a lot of very soap opera scenes, people exploding, people being very emotional. But it doesn't really add up. The dialogue is not that good. The plot does not make a lot of sense. And the story overall is weak. But as people have said, it does give you enough. There are apparently good callbacks. It does make sense within its own parameters, I guess. It isn't really a typical Halloween film, but I guess if you have enjoyed the trilogy, they've sort of had different interpretations of Halloween. The first one was obviously an homage to the first film. The second one was a slasher, and this will be, I guess, a more melodramatic interpretation of Halloween and the Halloween myth, and that's what they're doing, and that's what you're going to get. So there are quite a lot of kills, but people were disappointed they aren't as gory or graphic as they seem. They cut away a lot from the actual blood and gore. I myself personally don't mind that, but if you wanted this to be as intense as Halloween Kills, at least, it will not be. But there are a lot of kills. Michael does not do a lot of them, so the majority of them are by this other person, who we can assume are, we know the obvious answer. So there is a lot of action, but the story and plot don't really move forward that much. It just drags for a huge amount of its time. But again, there are positives. The music, the score, they do set, I guess, an appropriate mood because they did cut back on the jokes. I appreciate that. So it is somewhat more somber and serious than the other entries. That's good at least. So it's somewhat more consistent in tone, but the acting is also pretty strong by some of the performers. But again, the plot doesn't make sense. It's too melodramatic. We don't get enough with Michael to understand why he does what he does, or even his downfall. I'm not giving anything away. He clearly is going to get killed. Laurie will survive, but why or how, they don't really explain. A lot of things just happen. people come back who we thought were dead from Halloween Kills or even the first film. They're just back. They survived somehow. So a lot of things just happen, and they do have interesting ideas and concepts, but they don't really make a whole lot of sense, and they sort of contradict what happened before. It seems to be its own story, and it's not really connected to the other films even, but for what it is, if you do get into it, you will enjoy it. If you come in with modest expectations, you may get a lot out of it, but that is what the early reviews are saying. I don't think it's fair to say they're mixed. They are pretty negative. There are a few mixed reviews and some positive reviews, but from the majority I saw in print, online articles, as well as the Rotten Tomatoes, overall, it does appear it's going to skew negative. Again, I forewarn, these are early reviews. I myself am somewhat biased against this trilogy. Put that into account. If you want a more positive assessment, go to Rotten Tomatoes. Some of the postings by fans are very positive. They give it a perfect score or a really high score, but the majority are very negative, and that is where we stand. So make of that what you will. Those are the early reactions to Halloween Ends.
Except for that first 20-30 minutes, love that, love that. The rest of the movie, I just felt like it didn't work at all. And I feel like this is definitely the weakest out of the new trilogy by quite a mile. I would put Kills a lot more higher.